Good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick note. We'll just allow some of the lay participants to join, and then we will start at 13:05. Thank you. Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the launch of the engagement portal. We just have, I think, Ntokozo, if you can share with us just a few housekeeping rules for today's session. So I think we will just keep everybody muted during the presentation, not to cause any distractions or disruptions. And if there are any questions, please do pop these in the Q&A section on the platform. We will try and also then attend to some of these questions towards the end of the session. Any questions that we do not attend today, we will then make a copy so that we can ensure that the questions are captured in a FAQ document with the responses, which we will then also publish by the 31st of March. Thanks, Ntokozo. Right, I think, let me just switch on the camera here quickly. Oh, sorry. So I think just from my side, just, yeah, I suppose, firstly, welcome again to the webinar session for the SAHPRA portal. As you know, the SAHPRA portal will go online on the 1st of April. It is, I think, just important to note that the digitalization of our business processes will be managed in a phased rollout approach. And of course, the first of these processes that we have tackled includes health product applications. So this is the new applications, renewal applications, and then variation applications, as well as then Section 21 named patient and Section 21 multiple named patient applications processes. This then for 1 April 2025. We also have, and we'll touch on it very briefly today, we have also the clinical trials submission module that is planned for a go live 1 July 2025. Other systems we also need to mention, or maybe it's worth mentioning, is that our NDS system, which is responsible for the management of import and export permit applications for controlled substances. This as well then scheduled for a go live 1 May, and we'll have a detailed webinar session on that during April, so that we can also then do a webinar and share some information with regards to that. And then you might be wondering what's happening in June. So in June, the go live for the RAISE Plus system is scheduled. And this is specifically for the management of radiation control applications, licenses, so covering devices, etc., establishments. And then I think in the second quarter of SAHPRA's financial year, that's July to September, we'll be focusing on deploying the AI tool number 1 for operational testing within the operational areas where this could be used to help us improve efficiencies. And then the development for AI tool number 2 already at that stage would be well underway. We are currently in scoping and design, and then the teams will start cracking on with development in May, June, and then hopefully July we can start with the performance qualification tool as well. So that then will kick off in quarter 3, and we are planning for deployment for operational testing then in January 2026. Other development activities will resume after our freeze. We're just in a development freeze at the moment as well, so we'll resume April through to June. We will be working with our development team to enhance the system features for the first 2 business processes. This then for enhancement log items that have already been captured as feedback out of the internal session, as well as the focus group testing session that we had with certain applicants that responded to the EOI. So this is basically what we're doing for the first quarter, I think in parallel with all the other activities. So we also in quarter 2, towards the end of quarter 2, we'll initiate the procurement for a technical partner to develop or deploy a pharmacovigilance platform, and this then to cover orthodox medicines, biological medicines, medical device and IVDs, and veterinary medicines. So very much with a One Health focus. And then funding availability dependent, we have some plans also to run parallel processes starting in quarter 2, where we want to also then do the process mapping and the flow designs for licensing applications, digitalization, so also new licenses, renewals and amendments. Also other key processes for us on our WHO GPT journey, Section 36 applications, recalls, withdrawals, substandard falsified, contravention of the Act complaints logging process. So we're looking forward to also getting that started quite soon. As I've noted, again, just a reminder, please do post your questions in the Q&A section. This is going to be helpful for us when we start preparing that FAQ document. Cornel in the presentation will also then share with everybody the portal support email address where you can direct queries, and this mailbox will be live from Monday the 24th of March. Again, just to reiterate, this version 1 of Portal goes online 1 April. And we have already identified through some really good feedback from our user groups, the testing groups, very nice enhancements, and we'll continue to work with your suggestions that come through on this mailbox, or questions that are raised, to continue to improve then the overall user experience. I'm now going to hand over to Cornel to just take us through the presentation for the launch of the SAHPRA portal. And afterwards, we'll have a look and see how many questions we can tackle with you. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Christelna. Welcome, everyone. My name is Cornel Lutenberg. I'm the solutions architect on the solution with the development team. And I'm going to take you through what's expected for the launch. So just waiting for Christelna to get the slides going there. All right. Thank you, Christelna. All right, so the agenda for today, firstly, portal overview and roadmap. Some of you have seen this before in our previous webinar, but I'll just do a quick refresher to make it clear on what is included in the initial version of the portal itself, taking you through some demo videos on what to expect now to navigate. Then we'll touch on registrations. Thank you for everyone that's registered so far. So we'll just touch on some registration implications there. Then there were several requests around multiple user accounts across companies. We'll touch on that, and Christelna will also provide some clarity on the decisions there. Then I'll just do another process refresh around the different steps in the process for HPA application specifically. We'll be touching on payment processing throughout the demo, and then there's information around the legacy data and onboarding, which will be a big part of the objective next week, hence why the current applications have been locked down. I'll show you the training guides and where you can find that, and that'll be available as of Monday, and then speak to support, and then just practicalities, timelines on where we're at and what's expected next. Thanks, Christelna. If you can move to the next slide, please. All right, so the first part of the portal is the HPA Health Product Applications new applications. There we accommodate for orthodox, new chemical entities and new generics, along with baselines. Then with biological, it's new biological, new biosimilar, new vaccines, and again, baseline as part of the new process. Next slide, please. Then under variations, we've got about 26 subtypes under the type 1A, type 1AIN, type 1B, and then type 2, along with accommodating for grouped Z codes, the relinquishing and acquiring process as part of type 2, and then additions as line extensions, replicas, and clones. So all of that is accommodated for in the variations. And then, as you know, there's a long laundry list of variation codes. So currently it's about 388 codes amongst all the different submission types. And there's also the ability to add additional codes. That's specifically something that came out of the industry testing, where there's a need for specific codes for certain scenarios and permutations that's not being allowed for at the moment. So Christelna, I'm not sure if you maybe want to comment on that specifically.
Cornelia, so I think one of the things that we internally will be doing in next week is just having a follow-on workshop with the internal teams to align on what this code matrix needs to look like. I think one of the good bits of feedback that we got out of the testing session is, of course, for specifically as quality, for an example, you know, you've got your 1A, 1AINs. If there are certain document requirements, etc., that's not met, that there is then the option to use the same code, but then, of course, at a type 1B risk level variation. Also, I think just in terms of the scenario discussions that we have to include in the update for the variations guidelines, as shared with the focus group during the sessions, we are in the process of combining the different units variations guidelines into one guideline for variations within the different appendices. but basically spelling out very clearly what the general requirements are, and then just dealing with these specific nuances or permutations per area. So in that updated document that we also will be publishing likely towards the end of the first week in April, we will then also be sharing with applicants the view in terms of what will take shape and what will be implemented as of 1 July. So just, yeah, I think some alignment on the submission types, then also the timelines applicable, in order for us to also get to a process where we provide consistency in terms of the turnaround time, something that's more predictable, and a work process will actually allow us to do resource loading and resource planning and make sure that we are able to achieve then the committed timelines. Thanks, Cornel.
Great. Thanks, Christelna. Next slide, please. All right, and then obviously as part of the process is renewals. So that process will then show you your current registered products, which you can then action for renewal, and it'll take you through the process from there.
All right, let me just get our video playing.
So this is a thank you very much. Short video showing, firstly, most of you have created accounts, so I'm just showing where you can find that again when the portal opens up again. If you haven't registered yet, it takes you through the registration process. Then logging in as a company organization, just a test organization. So once you've now registered, so as the company organization admin initially, you can see all the company details and update that. We've got a feature for CC email address. There was a request for a general CC on all the emails. There you can also then invite extra individuals. Now, as I mentioned, most of you have been through this to set up your organization, but I'll touch on that a bit later. Then going to the application process, so creating a new application. There's HPA in section 21, focusing on HPA for now. For new application, biological and orthodox. There's also then variations, all the different variation application types that's available, and then renewals, where you can search for the specific application you want to renew. Then going through the process of a new orthodox application, there's baseline, new chemical entity, going to do a generic here, the submission information, evaluation path, so all the required information, specifically also for the trigger file. And what's also happening here is as we're capturing all these permutations of information, it does the pricing calculation as part of the portal itself. Again, speaking to data integrity for reporting and everything moving forward. So all the relevant fields, so not a long form on the portal itself, but some of the core information that's required. You can add additional bio studies, additional clinical data if that's the case, searching for your manufacturers, providing the different CEP numbers. You can add multiple manufacturers. There we go. And then manufacturing information. So we've got the database that you can look up on, and specifying the different other manufacturers like final packers in this example, and then planned submission date. And this is now where you add your different strengths. So there's just a test strength, 50 milligrams, and then unit of measure, and then container closure systems. And there's then the option to add the duplicate. So you'll see it references the master there, and there you can indicate the recommended proprietary name there for the duplicate then. Provide that name through. So that's in essence initially all that we capture as part of the base application. From here, it moves towards, it generates the application ID for you along with application numbers, which you need to include in your dossier. Then you can create your sequence. So here's all the information around the sequence. So the initial sequence, at this stage, it's related to itself. For variations, there's different relationships. You can add a contact person, and this is anyone in your organization that's already been invited to your profile. Here, now it gives instructions to go and upload the ECTD. It'll show your username and password for the FTP there, as I showed in the previous step. And now it's in an awaiting payment status. So what the system does, it creates an order. It's not a formal invoice, but this is an order that you can take to finance with that strength 1, strength 2 fee, which you can then download, send to finance, and it's expected for you to then come back to the portal and upload the proof of payment for that specific amount, to not have bulk payments and things anymore. So there it's still in a draft. You can see the application, the different submissions, so awaiting payment. And from here, you can view the order again. From here, we're going to switch back to the admin user, as in on SAHPRA side. Just log in there. This is now the process behind the scenes where they will log in to then go and verify that payment. So it needs to correlate with the order amount and the proof of payment that's been submitted. So there's a finance dashboard, searching for that specific application ID to find that payment. So here they can view that's been submitted, view the original order, and then also review the payment. So there's the test PDF proof of payment that's been uploaded, and approve or dispute if that's the case. And there it's payment approved. So from here, it's now a parallel process, and I'll touch on that a bit later, but you need to come and confirm the ECTD upload for the rest of the process to then proceed with the integration into DocuBridge for the reviewing. So that's just a summary of the process for a new generics application. And then showing, sorry, Christelle, if this is the same video, just go to the next slide, please.
Oh, it's stuck. There we go. Here we go.
There we go. All right. So now this is variation. I'm logged into the application now. There you can see all the different notifications that came through about submission. It's been approved, the payment. So now this is an example of a variation. So you go to Health Products Application, select the variation, which variation you want to apply for or do a submission on. You can then search the respective application ID or product name and then proceed. So this is very similar to the DBP portal, where you can then submit your variation. You can select multiple variation codes. What it then does, it populates here at the bottom with the description of that variation code, and you can enter the specific information. At this stage, it's fairly generic. There's API manufacturer, or API information, or manufacturing information that's also being asked, but might not be applicable to the specific variation code. So that can be left blank at this stage. And in the future, what we'll do out of that 388 codes is to try and make it, depending on which code you selected, so it only asks the respective information for that code, and move away from the free text form fields necessarily to try and enhance the data even more. So as you can see, there's multiple codes. So that's a future listed enhancement that we want to improve on, again, for data integrity and reporting and elements like that. Also from a user experience, making it easy so that only the relevant information is being asked for that specific variation. And then that can be submitted. Again, there's a payment applicable, same process. You need to create your sequence. It calculates the payment that's going to happen. In this case, there's now related sequences that it could be related to, contact for that submission that needs to be added, and then rinse and repeat, upload to the payment, and then confirm the FTP upload for that specific dossier. So there's the payment that's been generated for the variation types that's been selected, and go through the process again around uploading FTP, the proof of payment. All right, moving on to the next slide. So that was now a brief demo in a nutshell, but just to reiterate on the process. So as you create the application ID is generated. You complete your application, you create your sequence, you download your order, make the proof of payment, and the payment is reviewed by SAHPRA. You have prepared your dossier, but there's information like the application ID that's been generated that you need to go and update in your dossier. So you can update that along with the proof of payment, which is still part of the dossier. Upload via FTP. Confirm your FTP upload, because there's instances where you might be busy uploading, so we need confirmation from you as the applicant that the complete 20 gigs or 3 gigs or whatever has been uploaded to the FTP. That then goes through a validation process, which could either pass, or if there's a failure, you need to look out for an email from the automator, which will indicate what was incorrect. If it was invalid, then you need to rectify the dossier and then come and reconfirm the PDF upload. And just a little note there at the bottom is there's some submissions that has 0 fees. We will still generate the 0 fee order, so the order will be generated for 0 amount, but that payment will automatically be processed for 0 orders. So that's just something to take note of. Thank you, Christelna. All right, and as we mentioned, the focus for today is mainly HPA, but Section 21 is also launching on the portal for named patient, multiple patient applications for Category A medicine. Along with that is patient outcome reports. So that'll be a requirement to submit the patient outcome reports within 6 months for the named patient or the multi-patients. So depending on throughout the process, if you apply for multi-patient, you define how many patients you're going to treat. So the expectation is an outcome report for those patients. And then to simplify the process again, should you have treated a patient for 3 months, but you need to do a reauthorization, there's minimal information to be updated with regards to the patient consent and the script information, prescription information, but the rest of the application will be pulled across along with the, from a reviewing point of view, anything that's been reviewed prior will also be pulled across for the reviewers so that they, to fast track the reviewing process, so that we don't reinvent the wheel with what's been done in the past. And if everything is in order, that should then fast track that process around that. So that's reauthorizations. And then, as Christelna mentioned, for clinical trial applications, it's planned for July. So that'll be the CTF1 by equivalent studies under new, amendments under CTF2, CTF3, and then phase 4 and other study notifications, and then reporting section for progress report or safety reporting, which will follow the similar manner to the previous process that I explained. All right, and then on registration. So to date, or since we pulled the report on Monday, there was about 151 companies that successfully registered. The registrations opened up with the initial pre-launch of the portal, where only the registration portion was available. That was in November last year. And across those companies, there's about 460 users that's been activated. So good adoption there. Thank you for everyone for their registrations. Then just a note for those who haven't registered, we are going to close that down on Friday. So as of Monday, there's going to be a temporary landing page on the portal. So you have until Friday to go and complete the registrations. And with Friday being a public holiday, so technically until end of tomorrow, but we'll leave it open until Friday. And then anyone that still hasn't registered will have to pick that up on the 1st of April. And so there's been several requests about multiple company accounts. So at the moment, let's say there's 2 separate legal entities, but you share the same email address. At the moment, it's fairly locked down that you can only belong to, with that user account, to one specific company within a CRPC number. But we've had 2 or 3 requests where this has become an issue. And the easy solution for that is to discuss it with your internal IT department to create an extra alias on your account. It is a 30 seconds, 1 minute exercise for them to add that, especially with the majority of people being on Microsoft, but that's irrespective, where you'll then have your name at domain with the one entity, and then name.company, which company 2 is an alias, which will still go to your main email box. So that's our recommendation at this stage. And I'll throw back to you, Christelna, as well, to maybe just add some regulatory context to that decision.
Yeah, thanks, Cornel. So I think considering, from our perspective, we have tried to include best practice in the design components and also how we manage the user account administration. Just ICT governance, we have one account, one logon credential, then belonging to an individual that's linked to an entity. And therefore, we are not able to allow the same user ID and same person to then be linked to two different entities. And this is, as Cornel says, this is a proposed workaround for you to tackle this just at organizational level, as we will very much be sticking to what is a good practice and best practice from ICT security perspective. So please do engage your internal ICT departments just to support you to create then those aliases if this applies to you. Thanks, Cornel.
Great, thanks, Christelna. Then legacy data and onboarding. So obviously there's a lot of legacy data that sits within DocuBridge, and the Vector team has also done a lot of put in a lot of effort to actually clean up that data, because now we need to start linking that data back into the portal so that when you want to start doing a variation on application you did a month ago, it's there for you to actually select and create that respective sequences as part of a new submission on legacy applications. So there we are going to tackle that next. Well, we've started doing that already, but next week is the big exercise to bring that into the production environment, matching that with the registered CIPC numbers. Again, critical about we can only do that with companies that's already been registered on the portal itself, so matching that data. So that's a key part of the data integrity and enabling you to then do further submissions on historic applications, specifically referring to variations and then renewals as and when they come up.
Neil, just to add on there, just a reminder for all of the colleagues, the request for verifying and sharing back information and input on the applicant listings of applications and sequences that we have on the DocuBridge environment. It was, I think, also communicated that certainly it was quite critical to get that feedback, as it enables in this process to make sure that everything that you expect to see come 1 April, we have accounted for it, and we don't expect any snags or issues with regards to the applications processes. So I think we did have a few late requests, and we are trying to accommodate those. Those came in obviously after the cutoff. But again, just to note, if you have missed something and that hasn't been fed back, and we therefore do not have certain information on the portal data set, you would need to then just raise that with us using that portal support email address, and just provide the relevant details so that the team members can then try and assist. However, that's now not going to be part of the mass update, and it will then need to be managed on a ticket-by-ticket basis. So yeah, I think that is just important to remember, that there is a 48-hour processing window to then retrieve the information if there is information to be retrieved, and then coordinate any sort of behind-the-scenes intervention to enable us to bring in data. Thanks, Cornel.
Thanks, Christelna. And maybe just a last point on that, on the data migration. So we only have as much data as we have. So there might be instances where you will be prompted. So we'll have the history of the application ID, the different submissions and the different sequences has been loaded, but there might be preliminary information which will now be captured, as I've showed, as part of a new application, those two-step process, where we might then prompt you as a user to please complete additional information that we might not have. It might be in the dossier, but it might not be on the portal, to just help with that kind of continuous data cleaning as we as we go through the process. So that's going to be a valuable exercise.
Yeah, good. Cornel, you actually, before you pop on to training mails, you actually reminded me now of an important point. Colleagues, just to note, whatever we enter into the portal during these application processes, whether it's for new, renewal, or variations, for instance, in the case of variations, much as with TVP, there is a variation summary that gets generated. And this, of course, like with TVP, it feeds off the information that was provided during the input phase. So really quite important, I think, that we all apply ourselves to be quite diligent in terms of, the information that we enter into the system. We do want to try and avoid rework and correcting of tables and correcting of data later on. So I think, yeah, that's maybe just important for the colleagues to remember, in as much as details around the products that get entered during the application processes will also then feed to the automated medicine registration database, where as we then run through the review and eventually the approval cycle, certain information that becomes part of the approvals process is then later added on. And again, a lot of that information pulled from the metadata fields to help us then generate the relevant supporting documentation. So whether that's a letter or a response or a certificate or a variation summary for that matter, it saves a little bit of time if the information has been entered correctly. So yeah, I think just maybe a note that we all just keep that in mind. Thanks, Cornel.
Great. Thanks, Christelna. All right. Yeah, I think as Christelna mentioned, a lot of automation that we manual work in terms of generating letters in Word, PDF, saving it, sending it back, that we're trying to base it off the data that's been entered and streamlining those processes. So the data integrity is very important. All right, then going on to training manuals. So we've done a lot of effort preparing detailed training manuals. This we will make available from Monday onwards, so long for you to peruse and go through it and coordinate yourselves. So very detailed documentation around how to register, again, for those of you who haven't registered or struggled registering. That's the video. Did it pause, Christelna?
I did, because I wasn't sure if I should play it.
You can play.
Just allow you to finish. Okay, right, let me do that.
So yeah, so detailed around organization setup. And then for each of the processes, there's detailed step-by-step guides with screenshots of every screen that you can go through for the different processes that I explained now. Structured overview. So yeah, I'm sure that should be helpful, and like any input that you pick up as you go through it, please feel free to send that through to the support address as well for us to update. So it's a living document. Happy for any input. See all the hands and smiley faces. So that's on section 21. All right, this is just showcasing everything that's in there. But happy for you to have a look then from Monday onwards, going through the documentation to coordinate yourselves. All right, and the FAQ section as well. All right, thanks. I think it's replaying, Christelna. Thanks.
Yeah, just try to get this thing to move. If it will cooperate already. There we go.
There we go. All right. So there on the right-hand side, that's what you'll see when from Monday onwards. So it'll just be a landing page, and there's then a link for the training documentation that we just showed. So that'll be available on the portal.sahpra.org.za. And then support, we've set up, as Christelna mentioned, they set up a portal.support@sahpra.org.za email address. And if we may ask that in the subject lines, just for us to manage and prioritize critical issues versus feature requests, and actually we might as well add an additional subject line for documentation updates. So when you send emails there, please make the subject line issue, which is a bug or issue or something that you're struggling with that we can assist with the description, and then screenshots all the content in the email. And then if there's new features that you would like, similar to what we got out of the user acceptance testing with some of the industry colleagues, please do share that. Definitely want to make this a collaborative effort for input on where we can streamline or ease the user experience or features for that matter. And then, as I mentioned, maybe a third one could be training documentation. If there's things that's not clear or we can update or, yeah, improve on
Neil,
that.
thanks. Yeah, I think that's actually a nice suggestion. I just want to tack on again to the subject around issues. So again, colleague, I just have to stress, we are going live now 1 April. And I think we are 98% comfortable that we have hopefully covered all of the potential scenarios and angles and ways of working and interpretation. But I mean, I think there is still, from our side, this acknowledgement that realistically there may be, because of data and data quality issues that we have had in the past, there may be some of the reference lists that needs augmenting. You might be looking for an API manufacturer that perhaps is not on the API IMF list. How we will manage that. Issues such as, you know, on your list of value chain participants in terms of the manufacturing process for your final finished product. There may be a release lab or a packer that you're missing off the list. These are the kind of things that we would request, please, that you log through to the issues under portal support, because it is something where we will be manning that email address very, very closely during this critical phase of go live, and have a very rapid turnaround to respond and address some of the challenges that then get raised or issues that then get flagged. So yeah, please, as soon as you pick up an issue, do let us know. I think as I said, we have got 4 or 5 people on this support system. So yeah, we definitely commit to providing quick turnaround times. Thanks, Cornel.
Thanks, Christelna. And then, yeah, just in conclusion, summary, I've mentioned most of these things before. So 21st of March, final day for registrations, and then 24th to 28th, data onboarding, tackling that exercise, and then the 1st of April will be the launch. And I think that concludes my side of the presentation. Thank you very much, everyone. Back to you, Christelna.
Yeah, thanks, Cornel. Thanks for the presentation, and also I hope that it provided some insights to all of the colleagues online in terms of where we are, what we've been busy with, and what's still to come. I think considering that we've done pretty well on time, actually ridiculously well on time. I should have planned only an hour. Let me just maybe go to our Q&A section and see if we can also tackle a few questions. And as I said, whatever we can't deal with on the session today, certainly the intention is to still capture all of our questions, make sure we update the FAQs so that you will be able to find that information. Very, very often we have common issues or common problems, so it makes most sense for us to just then publish that so everybody's aware. Right, so you, Cornel.
I see 2 of them here. Sorry, Priscilla, not to jump in, but
No, go for it.
I might not have mentioned. So the question from Rudy here is, do you need to copy the trigger file from the portal to the FTP, or how is the application and trigger file connected to each other? All right, so that's a critical one that I missed. Good question. So once payment has been confirmed, the portal, that's why we ask all that information initially. That is, a lot of that is compulsory information for the trigger file. So the short answer is you don't have to worry about the trigger file anymore. You merely upload your dossier, and the portal will then write the trigger file onto the FTP for the automator to pick that up. So that's a critical one that might not have explained. So that's one.
Yeah.
And then secondly, Andre, you asked, our company profile was created a long time ago on the new portal. Where do I find the field for the CC email address? So that'll be part of the release for the 1st of April go live. So it's not there yet, but on the 1st of April, you can go and update that email address there. So that's two quick ones that I spotted. Sorry, Christelna.
Great stuff. Cornel, just I think there is also a request for us just to share again the link for the portal. So if I can maybe just ask you to just pop that into the Q&A section under, I think it was Gafur Parker that asked the question. And then everybody else that has not registered or hasn't found it, please also refer to the SAHPRA industry communications. And then we'll also put it now in the Q&A section so that you can go and have a look and hopefully also get your registrations in before Friday. Question, how long is the hypercare period? What is the expected turnaround time before issues raised? Will SAHPRA share learnings from issues faced once portal goes live? I think very good question. So in terms of having a feedback session just to go through learnings and probably also share with you maybe some of the issues that we've captured on our enhancement log and what things we're planning. So I think for hypercare, April is hypercare. And obviously we know it'll be like high risk, or what do you call it, high care from a hospital perspective for the first 2 weeks. And then we hope to move our patient into the normal ICU for the last 2 weeks in April. But I think the expectation is that with the testing that we've done and completed so far, that hopefully we have covered most of the issues, addressed some of the snags that has been picked up. And I think, to be fair, our expectation is primarily it may be linked to we're looking for this in the reference drop-down list and this is not there. Can you please add that? So I do think in terms of turnaround time, depending on the severity of the issue and the complexity of the issue, as I said, between 4 hours and 48 hours. So for more serious issues and issues that are easy to resolve, the low-hanging fruit stuff, we typically are going to try and get that squashed within a 4-hour period. But we will be responding to those emails just to indicate then, you know, what the kind of like troubleshooting recommendation is, and then also what the expected ETA is for resolving that matter. And then in terms of having a follow-on session, so I think this is definitely a good one for us maybe to schedule early-ish in May, if not mid-May. Because I think over the month of April, we are anticipating that, you know, with everybody now starting to use the portal, we will pick up the bulk of the queries or the inputs or some of the refinement requests. And those then we are happy to kind of like, as we are working through it and also adding that to our enhancement log and prioritizing that. Probably by mid-May, we can then set up a session to actually give some feedback and just give an update in terms of what issues we had, where we are, and share that with you then also in a follow-on webinar. So happy to arrange that. So we've got a question, is this then not applicable for veterinary? So no, not at the moment. It's just for orthodox medicines and biological medicines. For veterinary products, we have to start a process also with Dr. Alice and her team to engage our veterinary stakeholders, because we will be taking in the submissions for veterinary, also moving from current formats, if not yet in CTD. We want to then transition also those applications across to CTD. And we have to start that engagement so that we can also then bed down a timeline for that transition. So once we have that in a CTD as an e-submission that can come in, we will then enable veterinary products also via the portal. But for now, it will follow the normal process through SFTP that Alice and the team has been using, I think, to receive those applications. So there's a question around, is the DVP portal currently down? So yes, it also closed down on Monday, along with the SFTP portal. So we have that admin freeze in place then basically from the 18th, and that will be in place then until the 31st of March. And then for variations, whether it's type 1, type 2, 1A, 1B, they are expected to be coming through the SAHPRA engagement portal. And as I did note, for your type 1A, specifically the inspectorate variations, the system will then also produce that variation summary document, very much like what you would typically expect from the DVP. So that will again then be available, but not through DVP, actually through the SAHPRA portal, because that lifecycle management needs to be managed properly through that ECTD submission process. So when the ECTD submission is created, that specific sequence for the 1A, you also then, after you've submitted and uploaded your FTP submission on the portal, confirmed your payment, SAHPRA has done the admin confirmation, we then will have the variation summary available for you. I think there is, I just have to actually check my notes. I think it is available. The 1As I think is available immediately, and the 1AINs, I think I've got a note here after 30 days. But I think, yeah, the summaries are available through the engagement portal. And then, of course, we note that the colleagues will still complete their review. And if there is then any negative outcome or further feedback that is required, then they will engage with you directly on that. So there is, you will see on the summary document, we just note that as well, that the variation summary basically is just a summary document, and that the SAHPRA colleagues will then still review your sequence and your submission. And if there are queries, they may follow up, or if there is a particular non-compliant matter, they may then send a negative outcome. Or in the case where everything is A-OK, it's obviously a positive approval that would come through. Right, so I think, Cornel, you covered those two questions from Rudy and Andre. Right, so there was just a question. Go for it.
Another one about we registered but received no notifications and we can't access the portal. So out of the odd 150, I think we had 3 or 4 companies that had a similar issue where the mails do get sent, and on our logs we can see that they were read, but that's actually the company spam trapper that reads them and what it blocks them. So what we can do, you can just send a request, we can resend them. And there's also email address notifications@sahpra.org.za. If you can just ask your IT department to just whitelist that email address to make sure those emails do come through. Replying on that question there. But with the previous instances, we resent them 1 or 2 times, and eventually it picked up that it can come through. So that's teething problems on IT side getting, not flagging them as spam, because I know they don't even go and end up in your spam box. They just get blocked completely.
I think there's a question around, if an automator message was not received for the resubmission, should we follow up with the team? I think, let me just say yes, rather send an email as not exactly clear on the resubmission component, what that was for or how that was managed, but best, I think, to maybe just pop through an email request to Pratibha and the team to try and assist, to troubleshoot that. Let me just go to the next one. Can you restrict access or create permissions of users within an organization profile, e.g. have users only with access to section 21 and not the rest of the submission platform? Cornel, I don't know if you want to just talk to user role definition, and also then I think when you obviously go through the training document, it becomes a little bit more clearer in terms of how you actually set up your organization with the rules and then who can see what. I don't know if you just want to maybe tackle that one.
Yeah, happy. So at the moment, there's organization admins and then just organization users. So organization admins, the ability that they have is to update organization information and invite additional users. And then the other users can at this stage see everything on that company's entity, but that's a feature that we can look at if there's a need to lock it down to specific application types. But at the moment, it's those two roles at the moment in the portal. So that's a feature that can be requested if there's a need.
Right, so I think we've tackled the turnaround times. Right, so there's a message here that says I've tried registering some of my team members, but it gives a message that they already registered when I type in the email address. So colleague, I don't know if you're one of the organizations that have 2 legal entities and they've already then logged a profile under one legal entity, as we've indicated for those issues that are internal to the organization, they should then just be managed through that proposed process. But on our side, if a person is already linked to a legal entity, they cannot then have a duplicate profile under another legal entity. And I think that question may be also just relevant to note. So for our entities that use outsourced services, also your outsourced partner would also need to receive a company email address from yourselves. So they as well may then be logged on and allocated access under your organization for your particular products. They, how can I say, cannot with their own email addresses register across multiple entities. And then we registered but received no notification. We can't access the portal. So yeah, as we said, if there is an issue, please do pop us a note after you've checked with your ICT department that the mail actually wasn't trapped by your spam filter. And then if they've confirmed that it's not actually been blocked, please do then engage with us via the support email address. Or you can actually send through an email as we've received now, just on the normal queries, because we obviously want you to get your registration in before Friday. Question around, will the application ID for registered products be the same as used for previous ECTD submissions, i.e. application number, or will a new application ID be issued for each submission? So data take on. I'm going to add that one to you, Cornel.
So the big differentiator, there's application ID and there's application numbers. The numbers will remain the same, but with the onboarding between us and DocuBridge, we're generating new application IDs itself. But that'll be visible on the portal on your application with your products. You can search for it there. So yes, new application IDs, not new numbers. We're taking on the existing numbers.
Can I just continue on that?
Please.
Yeah,
Madeleine.
I see there's some,
Yes.
there's some
there will be
comments
a
and
lot of
critiques in
questions
there.
and comments on that. So just to make sure everybody understands completely, previously we've submitted the application ID we said was the master application number of the first strength. We are discontinuing that format. You will now use the new application ID, which the portal will give you. So the moment you log in now, especially with legacy data, you log into the portal, you will see your legacy data there, and there will be a new application ID. Make sure it's not the application number, it's two different concepts. It's the application ID. And now if you submit a sequence, your folder name should be the new application ID. Do not use the application number. It will not succeed. It will fail validation, because in the back end, we are converting all of those folders and all of the URLs and everything, the connections to the new application IDs. You will also internally on your own software systems need to make sure that when you publish to the right new folder. So you have to have some internal workarounds to fix that internally, or converted to the new application ID, or else you will have the validation fail, which a lot of applicants already have seen, is that the application ID and the application folder do not align. So that will probably be your first check to see if there is association. Okay, so if there's any questions on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Muddy, I wonder, I think what might be helpful, myself, I'm a visual person. I wonder if we shouldn't just do HBA, do an industry communication and maybe just share a couple of screenshots so we can just kind of present a visual picture of what this looked like and what it should look like coming in then as a submission. And again, just that nice slide that you guys have got to explain that relationship between application ID and then application number and submission and sequences. I think that, yeah, I'll work with you so we can tie up and share something. So colleagues, yeah, we will then share maybe clarifying communication before the end of the week, just so that we can confirm exactly what you should be doing and what you should be looking for, and how an application ID as kind of like the, I want to say the surname of the family then relates then to the individual kids who each have their own names or numbers, but you've got a family name there that you need to remember runs with this product through its whole life cycle. If you need to upgrade type 1A to 1B, how will you process that? Payment. Okay, so with variations we have, and I think we'll also share that in the update communication on the guideline, we have started simplifying the understanding around, what code is what type, what is the description, and then what is the associated payment. And it literally runs in a very linear fashion. So for argument's sake, and apologies for the ignorance, I'm not so au fait with the codes, but for instance, a A.1.0 typically would be a 1A quality. This is the description. If you meet the requirements, then the associated fee would be 3.5 for that code, for that line, for that change. If, however, you don't meet all of the necessary requirements, then that same code A.1.0, you then have as a type 1A or a 1B toggle option, or you can select that. And the fee associated with a 1B is then, I think, the 5,600, which is currently on the new fee gazette. So that's how it calculates that, and it calculates basically in a linear fashion, so that it's very clear for ourselves, for you, even for our poor finance chaps who try to make heads or tails of, what is what and what does what mean and what's supposed to cost. So it's very clear in terms of that matrix. This is the code, this is a SAHPRA type, this is the associated fee. And if you need to upgrade due to risk to this same code, then this fee. So that's basically how we have simplified the management of that process. And I think then also, as Cornelius indicated, depending on how you input your information and what variation type you select. So first screen you get to is you have to select type 1B. That's what you'll do. And then you go on to the next screen where you then select a specific code. And from there, you then get your fee calculated based on that fees table that we've set up in the background. So again, if there is something, during your application process that you pick up that is strange or anomalous, please log us an issue on the issues email address. We have tested this good couple of times. Gone this scenario, that scenario. But yeah, certainly there may be things which we have not thought about or somebody hasn't picked up. So yeah, please feel free to share. I think for section 21, let me maybe just make a blank comment. For section 21, we have a webinar that will be scheduled for next week, Friday morning. If I can recall, the request was to run it from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. We will then go into a lot more detail on those screens and those workflows and those little videos as well, and then share with applicants, what the process looks like and what the expectation is. I think there was a question earlier on around for healthcare practitioners. So yes, under the Section 21 guideline, the healthcare practitioner is the one that applies for named patient treatment, whether that's for a single patient or for multiple patients. It's the healthcare practitioner that logs the application. But again, as you've seen with the user account administration, you have the option to then have your administrator with their email address that belongs to the practice or the hospital group, etc. And then you have the option to add a CC email address, which is then per application, any communication that comes from portal, the person that's in the CC address will be getting copies of that information. And I think historically that has been a challenge in the past with the Power Apps application, where there was a limitation in terms of which email address you could add. So we have tried to accommodate and address it also that way. So is there a maximum timeline from application ID to completion, as we may need time to get payment through? Okay, good question again. So basically, as you go through those sequential steps, right? So we don't expect, and certainly expectation is not that, once you start your application, basically within 30 minutes or an hour, you filled everything in, uploaded everything, and then off you go. We have, you remember on that flow slide also, Cornel did break it down for us to say, look, we know that you first have your process where you previously manually, we sent an email, we requested an application number, and then, the HPA colleagues would then give an application number and they would calculate what fees are payable, and that would be coming through. So that process, I think from an administrative perspective, we had that previously, I think, sitting at 15 days or 20 days, according to the guideline or whatnots. And that now has been reduced to literally however long it takes you to capture that information, that initial information, say this product, this is what we want to do, and then create your application ID and your application numbers based on the number of lines that you've added. So once you get to that screen, we anticipate that there will be a pause, because you now need to take that application ID and application numbers and update as well your ECTD, and make sure that the right information is there. And as Madeleine says, making sure that we have the right naming conventions applied. So that kind of mimics the old manual process of, you have to wait for us to respond and send you the information, except this is now kind of in your control. You will run through that process, collect your information, and from there, you're basically ready to proceed. So after you've done that, as we said, part of creating that sequence is to actually download your order form. And that as well, we know, some of the companies have a pay run once a week, some twice a week. But there is an expectation that in line with the current guidelines, at least, within 14 days, we will see that payment, proof of payment come through, proof of payment being uploaded. We know as well, you have to wait for the proof of payment to now upload that or make that part of your ECTD in any case. So there is this kind of like sequential timeline, but there is no limitation or no clock that is ticking on this at this moment. Where we do have a limiter is once the proof of payment has been uploaded and it's now going to SAHPRA Finance HPA admin for that payment verification. There is then 14 days from once you've uploaded payment to when you need to now come back and confirm FTP has been uploaded. So that then is where that 14-day limiter kicks in. But I want to say your kind of like pre-processing activities, that is entirely up to you. That's entirely based on your workflows and your planning. But it is from once you upload that proof of payment that we then expect that proof of payment obviously is now also part of the dossier. You've uploaded that for us to review and check, and now you can also proceed to upload your dossier on SFTP. Where can we find SAHPRA ECTD portal guide? So, okay, that then would be, as Cornel says, part of the actual portal itself. There's a section where you can find these kind of training documents or training guides. And as of basically then Monday, we have kind of disabled all of the other functions, but you will still be able to go and visit the SAHPRA portal site and then just access the training material, all these guidelines to then systematically work through that. Okay, so I think we spoke to the trigger file, and yes, because some of the submissions, from a file size perspective, they are quite large. Trying to upload that in a web interface or web application interface or Windows interface, we know it is not feasible. Sessions with timeout, etc. So the rational and pragmatic way to deal with these ECTD submissions is then to have the SFTP, the Secure File Transfer Protocol, that will still be available, and this is where your submissions need to be dropped. There is no need for you to drop a trigger file because the portal will actually be writing that trigger file based on the information that you input. And I'm sure you've picked up that some of the questions we asked are specifically also questions that was on the trigger file, and therefore that gets generated. So that trigger file that we write automatically from the portal gets triggered and released to the SFTP once you have clicked confirm FTP upload. Then we know it's ready to go. So I think just on that point, so that means that if before you click FTP upload, if there is anything you want to change or amend, you still have an opportunity to go into your FTP folder and then update, fix, amend, etc. Will you SAHPRA be including a manual for healthcare practitioners manage the Section 21? Yes. So I think that is also part of the training guides. And as I said, we will have then a more detailed discussion next week, Friday. Right. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to refresh this. Apologies, colleagues. Right, so I think there's another question for a while. While all the fields will show when a code is selected, including irrelevant fields, must all the fields have entries, for instance, where it's not applicable? So I think there are certain fields you will see that are forced mandatory, and those ones specifically are the ones that is required for the trigger file. So those remain mandatory, and they will always be mandatory. But there are certain sections, like for instance, with your API manufacturers, where it's a API where it's not linked to a CEP or CPQ or an APIMF number. You don't have a file number or a certificate number. Those that are, I want to say, entity-owned APIs, there, for instance, it wouldn't make sense for you to fill in a number because that's not referenced against anything. However, the information that is then relevant, you will need to fill in. For variations code is then option allowing for selection of unit-specific Z codes. Yes. So we've got Z codes quality, Z codes clinical, Z codes inspectorate, Z codes names and scheduling. I think those are the ones that I've got. For new applications, if the applicants abort a project after creation of an application still in draft before payment, is a process to cancel the same. So if you have, okay, so I think just going through that sequential steps, maybe I think just to reflect then, so you create the application ID and the application numbers based on your entries or inputs. At that point, there's an order that you need to download based on the fee calculation. If you do not pay, you also will not be uploading to SFTP. So there is nothing to cancel or withdraw, if I understand the process correctly, unless maybe you just want to add another comment to give more clarity. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. I think that was give more. So give more. I don't know if you want to maybe just add another comment on the chat. All right, so here's a question around what happens if there is a company processing payments for variations in a single bulk application. So the proof of payment will not be accepted because there is a unique reference number per order form, per transaction, and that allows us from a financial governance perspective to reconcile a transaction with a payment with a reference number. This has historically been a very big challenge for SAHPRA and challenges us every year when we get audited by the Auditor General of South Africa, trying to manage these bulk payments. As we see now, also in February, we had the Gazette come out, and all of a sudden now there is a challenge and some scrambling for top-up payments, etc., etc. So this is something that will not be accepted anymore. Please do make sure that you use the appropriate reference number. I think the guidelines also expressly clear on, if there is a system-generated reference number, the system-generated reference number should be used as a proof of payment, and it's linked to a specific order form, and it's linked to a specific value per transaction. Right. Will we still be able to include proof of payment within module 1? Yes, I think I did cover that. As the draft of applications accessible to all users within the organization, regardless of which user is compiling, so that the next user can finalize it. Yes, indeed. So I think this is again why that user administration control is sitting with you. So if you have got X amount of users and everybody's got their own role within the team, so the first person does this, second person comes in when they log on to their profile, they actually, because they're part of the organization, they see the organization's product applications and submissions in their list. So it is not like DBP where you can only see what you've been working on, and if you leave, then cadenza, conundrum, big problem. Because actually it is now sitting under the organization. That is also why the structure that we've put in place for user account management is there's an admin user at an account level for an organization, and then you add your other users, but it's access for the users to then the application dashboard, which then should contain all of the applications for that particular entity. You want to add something, Cornel?
Yeah, and it also remains under draft. So the applications, draft applications, under draft until payment has been submitted. Proof of payment has been uploaded. So it remains in draft until that status. So they do get split out.
Right. Thanks. How quickly will payment uploads be processed? I think we in terms of approval time, I'm assuming you're asking how quickly will that verification process run. So I think that should be in line with the current admin guideline. So it's part of that admin screening step. So the current admin screening step timeline will still apply to that. What is the approval timeline for payments? Okay, same question. Interesting. Okay, so this is something I think I will cover in the feedback session, just around how long it takes to do the payment confirmations. But as I think we've illustrated also on the portal video now, because all of the information is right there. You've got your order form, as a SAHPRA person what it is that was supposed to be paid, what reference number, and you then have your proof of payment that you can do the side-by-side comparison. It will be, from that perspective, quite easy. So I think that probably we will see a reduction in the timeline as soon as we've got this implemented, and then also happy to feed that back to the team so that we can update the associated guideline as well. But I think that's the whole intention of us going digital, right? Is we expecting timeline improvements. Right, let's maybe take a few more questions and then we can close at past. Do I understand correctly that we will still be uploading to the actual FTP site for the submissions? Yes, I hope everybody's covered on that. So that's also why in the portal step, we actually say to you, there's a little pop-up screen that says, okay, now go to your SFTP folder, log on with your credentials, and then upload your submission. And it is to accommodate and deal with the size of these applications to make sure that we've got seamless data transfer and we don't have data losses or interruptions of the load. Cornel, you want to add?
Just from the previous comment, something I might not have mentioned is as part of the integration with DocuBridge and Automator, all the statuses as they move through the process within DocuBridge, reviewing statuses also gets updated on the portal. So you, as the applicant, will have full visibility on any status updates happening on your application or submission. So maybe just a good note. So there's more visibility around statuses as the applications or submissions move through the process.
I think also in just tackling maybe then the next question. So we also had a session with the Regulatory Technical Forum last week where there was a question around the publication of the update to the guidelines, where we have the updates for instance, for the validation templates that are required, just certain things. I think primarily it was the section 1.8 in module 1 that seemed to have caused a little bit of a problem. So those we have also then fed back to RTF group last week, Thursday, will also then be published and made available by the end of the month. So Pratiba and the HBA team, they are also trying to keep up with IT at the moment. So those documents will then be available by the end of the month. Right, for variations where payments already been processed but not submitted before the admin freeze, will we still accept a payment? No. The correct process should be followed to request a refund. And then if those have been paid and it's been sitting with us for longer than 14 days, then yes, indeed, a request should be submitted to finance to request that refund. And when you then go ahead with your portal submission, you will then receive an order form with a payment reference number, and that's what you should be paying against. Okay, I think I have spoken to the fact that the portal at the moment deals with, and Cornel mentioned that, category A medicine. So basically orthodox medicine applications and biological medicines. And that we have got in this phase rollout plan, certainly plans to extend to other product categories. Maybe some of the colleagues would already know there is currently a feasibility study running with our medical devices unit, where they also have got a sample of pilot group participants that have submitted applications for medical devices and IVDs in the IMDRF TOC formats. And as the feasibility study then gets concluded in a subsequent phase of the portal, likely then in next year, 2026, we will then also enable, for instance, medical devices applications process on the portal. And then for CAMS, I think, again, we will support and align with the timelines and the roadmap that is communicated by the complementary medicines unit, sorry, to indicate then when they intend to start the registration processes then for complementary medicines. So we will continue to try and support each of these other product categories as their process goes live. And then, as I have noted, the first thing that we'll be doing for veterinary is we'll first be going through the process of engagement consultation around the changeover to CTD formats and getting ready for the e-submissions. And then in line with that, the concurrent process to then enable their applications on the SAHPRA portal. So very much we align with whatever timelines get communicated from the units, and we then will prioritize the development and accommodate for those processes on the portal. Right, should we continue to submit Section 36 applications via email? Yes, please. Really, as I said, the only two things that change is for health product applications, new applications, renewal and variations, and then for Section 21, which is the other area where we've got named patients and multiple patient applications also going onto portal. Everything else will then be announced as part of the phased implementation. As I did indicate, I think when I opened Section 36 applications process is a priority for us, and we hope then to also tackle that now in the phase 2 development cycle towards the end of Q2, start of Q3, so that it is something that we can then also quite early in the new year take live. Okay, let me do maybe one more question. For applications where we already have application numbers but were unable to submit before the freeze, will we be able to submit on the new portal with those application numbers, or will we need to submit with the application number generated by the portal? If the applications were not in, then yes, the process on the portal will actually need to be followed to bring those submissions in. So I think for us, 1 April is then the start for taking in new applications via portal. Again, just to make sure that, you know, at the start of the new financial year, we then have got all of the transactions accounted for by the portal system. So for those as well, the appropriate number to use would be application ID and application number, then generated by the engagement portal. Okay, so there's a question also around, will there still be access to retrieve approval documents from DVP? I think, I hope that by now all colleagues have, since we started the process last year in April, have had a chance to download all of the necessary letters and approval documents, and have you know, also brought that into their document management system for then the relevant dossiers. However, if there is still applicants that have not done that in the past year, they will need to then send through a request. We will have a look at enabling, I think, the function to have view access to the DVP, but it is quite an old application, and it is a bit challenging sometimes to have this kind of ring fence way that we work with DVP. So we will try and look at enabling a view access, but that then will be something that we'll only attend to in April once we've gone live. But yeah, please, colleagues, I think even with us being able to perhaps do that, it is quite critical for applicants now to start getting their document copies, and just making sure that we've updated the document structures internally at organization level. And then I think I'm gonna give myself half hour break so I can also rest the vocals. And I've got a few more questions online, not a lot, that maybe I will ask if we can just cover them in the frequently asked questions document. Okay, wait, let me just quickly check. Let me just see if there's something hectic. Cornel, also if you can maybe just pick up if there's something quite critical for us just to cover. Having issues uploading documents into organizational details. So this is a funny one. I think the one that Prakash has raised here, having issues uploading the documents into org tab. That's a funny one. I would ask maybe that we just get a support email for that on Monday when that mailbox is live. Prakash, can I ask you please, the portal.support@org.za, may you kindly just send us a support email request so that we can just try and assist you with getting the organizational documents uploaded then on your account profile. Because that is a bit of a funny one. I'd rather deal with it before go live, to be honest. Right. So there's another question. When will post-importation testing applications go live? Right. So on portal, the other sub-processes like your APIMF and your post-importation testing submissions, applications, those are as well in a phase 2 development scenario. So we do, because there is this linkage and tie up with how that information flows through to the DocuBridge system. Already we have built the interfaces between the portal and the DocuBridge system. So also as we transact within DocuBridge, you then get that live feed into the portal, where on your dashboard you can actually see what's happening with your application, with the 4 work streams being inspected: quality, clinical, names and scheduling. What is the status of the application at that particular work stream? And I think for the same token then, as we bring in APIMF and post-importation testing, we also need to make sure that that linkage into DocuBridge is there, so that, of course, all of the regulatory documents sits within an application ID. So that will be something that for now, it continues as is. And we have got that planned along with APIMF submissions for the new year. And I think I've tackled the CAMS question. Yes, we will share the slide deck as well. I think as part of the webinar publication, the video will be there. And then also we will post the slide decks. Of course, videos won't play, but the rest of the slides you'll be able to look at. And I think what would be quite handy, of course, is also to visit the SAHPRA site just to go through the training documents. Those are very informative, they're very detailed, and they certainly will give you a really good sense of what to expect. Let me see. What do we see? Okay, I think there's a question around validation, but that's an ECTD question that relates to validation issues. So it's a submission issue, so it's not really relevant for the portal. I think, maybe just to say that is part of the reason, the reason. Knocking, no. Apologies. Just had to quickly get the other conference attendee out of the office. But that is, I think, part of the reason why we sent out those lists in February, because we were looking to identify what missing information is there, so that we can then complete any of the missing information, either by bringing that into the DocuBridge system, or at least being able to request that replacement of the copy. So I think if that had not or hasn't been done, then yes, certainly I think there would be a challenge even trying to log a submission via the portal. As we've indicated, it is quite critical for us to have had that information during the data take on. So this is then where that information that has been fed through is something that Pratibha and Madeleine has been working on. So all of those gaps and feedback points that have been shared, the team has now, since the end of February, been working with Madeleine to make sure that any incomplete data we are able to get updated. And I think there has already been quite a number of sequence submissions made by our applicants to then start closing that gap and just making sure everything that should be there is there, so you don't actually have this kind of challenge. So I think post the admin freeze, when we go live again 1 April, as I said, if we were not alerted to this during that survey and request for feedback, unfortunately this will then have to come through a support ticket request. And as I said, we have then for those ones, which is a more lengthy process, because it's a process of data take on once we have the information available. that actually will take 48 hours to process. So yeah, actually quite critical for us to have received that information to enable a good data take on. Question again, portal functioning. Yes, I've been unable to load my team, no emails going to them. I think we dealt with this issue right up front, just in terms of please do make sure that the emails are not blocked by your company spam folder, and that that SAHPRA email address is actually whitelisted. If you have checked that and you're still having issues, then I think, again, please encouraging you to just log a ticket to the support email address so that we can then confirm that the emails have been sent, and then just, guide you through how to engage your ICT department on that. Camera, yes, definitely we'll be doing the recording as well. On the events calendar, you'll find that link there for today's session, and if you click on it, then Melanie and Tokoza will make sure that we upload the recording as well as then the slides. Usually takes just a day or two because they do some nice editing for us, and then of course just upload the clean copies. But yeah, please do have a look out for this, probably by the end of the week. Not to put you under pressure, Mel and Tokoza, but just saying. And then I think that looks to be it. I can refresh it, Cornel, if you spot anything else I might have missed. Because I went obviously from the newest ones when I started to the oldest ones. I'm sure there's a bunch of new things that have popped in between. But I think those ones I am going to ask your indulgence, please, to actually take offline. Andre, if I can ask, I see your hands are gone up, but if you can just post your question in the chat, please.
I think it's the general concern around the 14-day window, how feasible that is to get the proof of payment, put it in module 1, and then also get it uploaded within 14 days. It seems like there's a general concern around that. Just practicalities around. Another comment on this, we have a hub overseas that do the ECDDs, so we're on a queue with all other countries. This could be difficult to meet.
So I'm not quite sure how that's being managed at the moment, because that, as far as I know, that 14-day timeline is specified in the guideline at present. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I'm happy to take this back to the team internally, and we certainly can think through that. But yeah, I think for us, the real concern is, when we have these changes like, publication of fee gazettes coming in, even though the transaction might have been created, the actual submission date is when that FTP site folder gets uploaded on the SFTP, and you come back and you say confirm upload to FTP. That's the submission date. So if that submission date is then on the other side of the Gazette coming out, again, there's an issue, because now when we actually do the screening on our side, the payment, even though the order form at the time said this, it's not consistent then with the gazetting of the fee. So really something I think probably we all have to think through. But yeah, happy to have an internal discussion and I think come back on the FAQ document in terms of a suggested way forward. So that at least we have clarity around, if that particular scenario that I've described plays out, how will we then handle that? But certainly, I think the expectation is, seeing as we've got this currently as the accepted process for 14-day kind of like window, I was expecting that should not be a challenge to comply with. So yeah.
Maybe one last one is regarding the payment reference. Will each prompt for the payment request have a unique payment reference number, which we have to use, or can payment references be used as indicated in payment guidelines? So I think that's something we discussed yesterday as well. In the top right, there is a unique payment reference, and I believe some of the guidelines will be updated to for the applicable applications in the portal that's generating references, which is section 21 at HBA, use the new reference number.
Yeah, so I think the guideline already says that, Cornel. So it indicates that the application processes that have a digital process, that the corresponding payment reference number should be used. I mean, and this obviously has been the case for Section 21 for quite some time. But as we digitalize a business process, literally one after the other, then that electronic reference number is the one that should be used. And eventually, the manual payment reference numbers that we had on previously for manual processes does not apply. So I think quite key then, just that specific section in the payment guideline, just to remember, is as a electronic process or electronic system comes in, you have to use the system's payment reference number. And the same will happen for NDS 7 when that goes live in May. There's also a system generated payment reference number. What's the other one? Yeah. Let me stick with that for now. Right. Okay. Right. Colleagues, again, the issue around all proof of payment. So very important for us now, because we've got a start of new financial year 1 April. From an audit perspective, again, as we create a transaction on the system, that transaction reference number needs to match the proof of payment. So please, I don't know how many of these payments were made in advance of the submissions coming in. But yeah, unfortunately for those ones, I have to ask that we follow the process of requesting refund and then processing the transaction based on the order form and the new payment reference numbers. It causes audit issues for us when we struggle to reconcile the payment that's on the bank statement against a specific transaction.
And then on that as well, does the proof of payment have to be included in the M1? If not, then 14 days may work. So I believe the struggle is more that the proof of payment needs to be uploaded and also in the dossier. So is that still a requirement?
Yeah, so I mean, we were discussing that. I know Madeleine will chime in because we already knew with the process now going into portal that this typically would be something that's going to fall away. I think it's around the timing of when we do the update to the ECTT guideline. So Maria, maybe that's something you and I can think through. I know we are already looking at doing some changes for 3.2, but that kind of would be a fair assumption that that's going to drop off, right?
Yes, definitely. I think that will definitely drop off. We already discussed it quite a few times. Yes, I think also at this point, it's a mandatory value according to the document matrix and that. So in this case, we need to include it to that you can pass validation. So unfortunately for now, just leave it in, but soon Christina and team will communicate when we will drop it off.
Yeah, so I think maybe that would then be a good benchmark to use. So thank you for that question. So perhaps what we can do is then have the internal engagement with the team and say, look, I mean, even though the guideline says 14 days, let us rather update the ECTD, drop off proof of payment out of the submission requirements for module 1. And when that is effected, we then say, okay, now, we have to really stick with the 14 days. I think that would be a good way to perhaps address this without causing unnecessary complications in terms of, well, proof of payment's been, payment has been uploaded and now we still have to actually get the dossier back from Global and then upload. So that would make sense. We can then definitely have the internal discussions and see if the team would align with us on that. But certainly, I think it's a more pragmatic approach. If we have submitted a sequence before freeze of sequence not accepted or rejected, can we resubmit via portal with the same? Pritesh, I'm assuming you mean that you did not get an automated email. So stands to reason that you have not received an automated email. So I'm not quite sure when you uploaded this. So perhaps maybe I can ask you also just to drop us a query with that application number and the sequence number. You are asking us to confirm, did it come in, did it not come in? But I think rule of thumb is, Automator needs to send you an email. So if that hasn't come through, I'm assuming there was a challenge with the upload of submission. I don't know if it's a trigger file issue or what the problem might be, probably a trigger file issue. But yeah, let us just have a look at that for you. So if you can also then just pop through an email to that support desk. Sure. For payments that have already been processed, and SAHPRA, please make an exception. Yeah, so I think hopefully I have explained just what challenge it poses for us to take in something with a new transaction number, new reference number, just from a financial audits perspective. So please, colleagues, if I can ask you, just follow the process to request that refund and then just reprocess. It is quite critical for us to make sure that the systems all tie up and that the bank statements also then can be reconciled back. We are trying to, from a 3A entity, keep our unqualified, no findings audit status. And this has historically been a really big challenge for us from a financial management perspective. Trying to, manage these bulk payments and make sure that, for each transaction, we have now got the subsequent mini transactions allocated to it. It's a really challenging task. Okay. Right. Please, could you also explain how the submission numbers will be allocated and handled? Refer to question from Annelies below. So let me see if I can go to Annelies. Oh, well, I'll get there, right? So put a pin in that one. Let's see when we get to Annelies's question. When will the Q&A? So yeah, we are going to publish that, as I said, by the 31st of March. We've answered the question around the proof of payment module 1. So we'll also revert to you in the FAQ on that one. For resubmissions or resubmissions where proof of payment is not required. Okay, for resubmissions, technical screening query where proof of payment is not required. Previous sequences, proof of payment is used. Does the system allow applicant to move to the next step and not generate a new order? So I think, Larita, as Cornelius indicated, so on the fee calculation table for a response on technical screening, the fee calculation table says 0 payment, and that's what Cornel says. So it will create the order, but it says 0 payment, and then we in the system mark that as paid. And yes, then you will be able to proceed then to the next step and move on. Same for instance, if you do a response 1, again, there is no associated fee. So if you upload the response 1 sequence, again, creates the order form, 0 rand due, marks it as paid, and you can then immediately go on. For response 2, where there is now an associated fee, then of course your order form will say, for response 2, this is the fee, and it will wait for the proof of payment to be uploaded. I hope that is clear. Right, so there is a question around timelines for variation. So I think, yes, there will be in the updated guideline this change. So in as much as, we have adopted the EMA structures and frameworks, from a SAHPRA perspective, resource and infrastructure-wise, timelines that EMA are able to achieve with their decentralized and procedures and centralized procedures and the manpower sitting behind centralized, it really for SAHPRA as an entity with the resource constraints we have is not feasible. And we have done some calculations and checks based on the actuals that we've had over the past 24 months to then recalibrate also the time taken per variation type. And that will be included in the variations guideline so that we can create more realistic expectations that we can then also realistically deliver against more consistently. Because I think the feedback that we've had so far is the inconsistency that really is honestly the biggest headache. At least if we say, it's so many days and we stick to so many days, it makes it a lot easier from a planning perspective. So we've taken that input on board, and that is then indeed how we will present that in the updated variations guideline. Right, let me just see. Okay, so for section 21, Corinne, if I may ask as well, if you could kindly join the webinar session then next week, Friday morning. That event communication will also be shared by our communications unit within the next few days. We'll send through that link for registration for that event. And then I think that this question around healthcare practitioners applying for Section 21 portal, what needs to happen and how will they get access to information required then to complete the different steps, and how do they and their importer work together to make sure that the relevant information is then supplied and provided. So we'll cover that in a lot more granular detail. But again, the intention is to help us take in structured information, manage the information for the application, so it's an easier process also for reauthorization, but also the challenges we've had with reporting and presenting information and management reports to the exco and the board is then something that really played in our minds as we then set about creating those application forms to make sure that the right information available, we can actually then use that for reporting. But there is an expectation that there will be a discussion internally between whoever applies, and then we'll be bringing in stock to make sure that the relevant information is furnished to the person that actually loads the application on the portal. Does that need to be the healthcare practitioner? Well, you can nominate a user, as I said again, just making sure that that user doesn't exist on any other entity, but you can then nominate a CC email address or nominate another user to join your organization's profile. So whoever actually does the administrative bits and pieces, that will be determined, I think, by your internal arrangements and processes. But the details required from the healthcare practitioner, the importer, the product, those are all required to be submitted. All right, we've spoken about proof of payment turnaround times, received an invalidation error. Again, ECTD, I'm not going to deal with in the portal session. Okay, 14 days. Question is calendar days, work days. I think for me, if I can ask Alistair, what we'll do is let's revert to you on the FAQ. Let's try and find some flexibility on this. I think, the key thing is we're digitalizing this so that we can actually drop that off module 1. So let's find a way to accommodate that slightly longer time frame than that some of the applicants face where they wait for submissions to come back from global. So I'm going to ask you not to stress about that now. Okay. Sorry, I'm just reading all the questions. Sorry for the silence. Right, could you kindly show an example of a submission on SFTP and corresponding steps which follow on the web portal? I'm not sure. There is also a guideline around SFTP, what kind of software you need to download, how you need to also request credentials from the SAHPRA ICT. So if it's something that you haven't used before for a new health product application, or whether it's an orthodox medicine or biological product, I think probably that would be a good starting point, is just to have a look at the guideline, and that guideline as well. As we've said, we are putting our HPA colleagues under pressure to make sure that the updated guideline with the new reference numbers and the naming conventions is also published before the end of the month. But I think that document actually has a couple of screenshots. Actually, Mr. Sotole, maybe if you're still struggling, you are also welcome to send us an email, so that we can maybe then try and connect with you. I was not aware that there may be applicants that haven't actually used SFTP before, unless this is not for orthodox medicines and biologicals. As I said, for veterinary, they do use SFTP as well. We're not really taking anything in for CAMs and medical devices as yet. So yeah, maybe best thing is let me invite you to rather send us an email so that we can just try and walk you through this. And even if it means we just have to do a quick Teams call with you. There's a few instances where some of the ARMA collaborative review applicants also have never worked on SFP, and we just had a quick Teams call with them and walk them through that. So I think if I can ask you just to engage with us then directly, let's help you with this particular challenge. Okay. Right, so application numbers. Okay, so Makulani, again, applications need to be in by close of business 17th, and therefore any new submissions would need to then go through portal, i.e. a new application number, new application ID would be applicable. Size limit of the file that can be uploaded on the portal. So Gita, I'm assuming you're talking proof of payments and things like that, because the actual ECTD submission goes on to SFTP, and there, from an ICT perspective, from SAHPRA's end, we have seen and received, not encouraging you to do this, but we have seen and received applications that go up to 25 gigs. And both the SFTP portal was able to handle that. And I think even from a DocuBridge perspective, uploading that through the automated process, though it took a few minutes longer than the normal ones, we also saw that move through quite quickly. Average sizes of ECTD submissions that we see, it's anything between 3 gigs and 8 gigs. But yeah, that's typically the ones we get. But if you've got a giant of a submission you want to actually upload on SFTP, again, feel free to maybe just flag that to us to keep an eye on it. But yeah, at the moment, there is no specific limit. I think we have in the past applied a 15 gig limit. However, as I said, on special request, we can actually increase that to, 26 was the last request. But the averages that we accommodate for quite easily, as I said, they're between 3 and 8. So anything in that range, there is no problem. I would suggest, if you're not sure, welcome to check with us, and we can confirm with the IT team. If we need to make special accommodation, we can do that also very easily. We have done so in the past. Cornel, okay, 3 o'clock. There's still a few questions, but yeah, I actually think there's 2 questions. Yeah. Okay, wait, let me do it. With regards to the change in the application ID, does it mean that we will need to change the number on our end on the document ID? Yes, yes. Please do. Michelle, I think Madeleine's also just flagged that to say we must just remember that that application ID now needs to kind of like just be input into your documents before you publish, please. And when payments are required for subsequent reviews and responses is expected to be uploaded in 10 working days, how will this be handled if the proof of confirmation process is 14? When payments are required for subsequent reviews, I'm assuming this is the response reviews, right? And the response is expected to be uploaded within 10 working days. So I'm, I think, let me also confirm because I do not know all these guidelines off by heart. But I know for new applications, there is a requirement for 14 days. However, for response reviews, considering it's also a new fee that's just kicked in on the Gazette, I'm not sure if that 10 days then will be aligned with 14 days or if the process actually then changes where, we have a 14-day cycle or between proof of payment and response to be uploaded. So, Lashania, let me also then confirm with the units what the update there is on the guideline for that. And I do note that it is then part of the new fee gazette structure. So therefore, we just need to provide some clarity around that. I think rule of thumb probably SAHPRA colleagues don't shoot me. But rule of thumb, I think, is that for now, as we're going through this go live and into this kind of like hypercare phase, is that for April, there will be accommodation for these kinds of anomalies on timelines. This is very new for us, as it is for you. And we do want to kind of accommodate these kind of scenarios, which, well, we have to actually start using the system to see what makes sense. What is then reasonable and rational to have then as time limits. And once we have that settled, we can start applying the caps or the limitations from a system perspective. But for now, we have not applied any limitations or capping or suspension of or stoppage of. It is something that we also acknowledge, we actually have to start using the system to understand what makes sense. So I think maybe then let me just put that forward, is to say these days in terms of between proof of payment being uploaded and expecting the submission, please do try and stick to the prescribed timelines. However, if there is a challenge at this stage, we are not going to be imposing any hard limits. We will communicate with you through HPA. We'll send out the industry comms. We will then just confirm the relevant timeline limits, and then we will agree a timeline for us then being more strict around observing these times between upload of proof of payment and then kind of when that submission needs to be uploaded. I hope that's helpful. And okay, wait, you see now, here I finally found the question from Annelies. Thank you for explaining how the application IDs will work. Please, could you also explain how the submission numbers will be allocated and handled? So I think, Annelies, let me work with Madeleine to put together that communication with the screenshots. And I think, once you see, usually when I look at that slide, it makes perfect sense to me, but you've got to actually visually see this thing to understand the relationships between, this family name and all the kids and the, whatnots. So we will do that, and we're gonna try and push that out to industry as a priority. So let's try and I think, Pratibha, let's try and prioritize this particular set of communication for us. Mari, I'll touch base with you as well so that we can work on that. And then I've already gone 5 minutes over, so I kept going even though the throat is a bit parched. But yeah, the rest of the questions, colleagues, we will definitely take into the FAQ. For some of these that I have answered now on the webinar, we'll also then just try and capture them on the FAQ so that we don't lose track of them and what the feedback was and the discussion points, but make sure that we at least reflect in a rather robust way all of the feedback based on the questions that we received. Thank you very much for being so engaging and also just raising some of these key questions and giving us an opportunity to talk to you about the portal and hopefully answering some of the concerns that you have. And again, just as I said, to make an omelette, one has to break a few eggs. So please do bear with us. We think the ride will be 90 to 95% comfortable. But we are also realistic to say, look, there may be 5% of anomalies or outliers that, we just didn't pick up. And those are the things that we will work with you through that support email address to address and turn around as rapidly as we can. And if there's any concerns, there is a particular sticking point, please then do raise those on the support email address, as we've noted. That is then live and active as of Monday the 24th. So you're welcome to engage us through that mechanism. Cornel, anything else from your side?
No,
No?
thank you for the engagement.
Okay. Oh.
Looking forward. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, colleagues.
Bye-bye.